I said I agree everyone deserves a fair hearing. Unfortunately, none of these people want to talk to me. Also agree that conflicts of interest don't automatically invalidate research, but a complete inability to respond to any criticisms kind of does. I see you've got a PhD in published research, maybe you'd like to chat. After I looked at her profile, I commented, "Oh dear, Amy Jackson is crisis communications. My antics must have been referred up a level. Surely you'd like to chat, Amy." We've officially tipped the meat industry into crisis mode. My post of my video calling out this misleading AHDB report has, wow, over 7,000 impressions now. That was enough to earn a comment from Amy Jackson from her LinkedIn. Specialize in a range of communications and public relations specialisms, including reputation risk management, strategy development, and issue and crisis resolution. She describes her work as being in specialist issues and crisis communications. Is my little YouTube channel being considered a crisis already by these people? This is early days. So Amy Jackson's commented on my post, "While I appreciate that there are opposing views at work here, I'm curious why a social scientist would take such an aggressive and provocative approach to debating others' positions, and push £100 at people who work for not-for-profits and so would not take that money even if they wanted to, just for clicks." You're allowed to take money if you work at a non-profit. Of course you are. What are you talking about? I can just personally bank transfer someone money if they work at a non-profit. Of course I can. I love this just for clicks as well. It's something I notice oftentimes when I'm interacting with meat industry representatives. They really can't understand a more altruistic mindset. They can't imagine that I might be sincerely concerned about the quality of science going on here and sincerely concerned that people are doing misleading science and saying that it means things that it doesn't. They can't imagine that somebody would be concerned about that, so I must just be doing it for clicks, right? There's no concern for broader scientific standards or for, illegitimate industry attempts to influence the discourse. Must just be for clicks. It's the only thing I can think of that would make any sense. It's very typical of the mindset of meat industry people, I'm telling you. Somebody else is chiming in here who I gather runs a research company that is also connected to the meat industry. "These posts have got nastier over the last few days, and I decided that there is an agenda here I don't want to engage with, as it's no longer about public good." I mean, I appreciate that my tone might be rubbing some people the wrong way, but this is absolutely about public good. The fact is, it is not true that increasing or even maintaining our current level of meat consumption is at all conducive to improving health or environmental outcomes. And the AHDB is cynically trying to imply that that is the case in order to ensure that more animals are killed for food. So yeah, that is in the public good to push back on that, actually. It's super simple, right? They're knowingly being dishonest in a way that's harming the public health and the environment. Disagree with any part of that? So it's pretty much what I said in my comments. Hi, Amy Jackson, Claire Ottridge, thanks for your comments. I appreciate that I'm coming across quite strongly in some posts. As I noted in my most recent video, I think this is necessary to disincentivize meat industry quote-unquote scientists from publishing junk science that they can use to influence policymakers to protect their industry. It's worth noting that you are both employed by meat industry organisations, directly or indirectly, so you'll forgive me if I take your feedback with a pinch of salt. Perhaps you're even producing pro-meat research, in which case I certainly don't expect you guys to like this approach. That said, if you're producing honest, relevant research which actually shows what it pertains to show, and your organisations are not misrepresenting that research in order to sell more meat, I can't imagine that we're ever going to have a problem. Amy Jackson replies, "I'm not sure it matters who works for who." It should be who works for whom, but that's fine. "You equally wear your animal advocacy and alternative protein badge with pride, but I wouldn't assume that your work or your research to be biased as a result, unless you provide a clear reason for me to think that. Everyone deserves respect and a fair hearing, even if you disagree with the industry they work in." I said I agree everyone deserves a fair hearing. Unfortunately, none of these people want to talk to me. Also agree that conflicts of interest don't automatically invalidate research, but a complete inability to respond to any criticisms kind of does. I see you've got a PhD in published research, maybe you'd like to chat. And after I looked at her profile, I commented, "Oh dear, Amy Jackson is crisis communications. My antics must have been referred up a level. Surely you'd like to chat, Amy." I don't know though, 5 hours since I asked if she'd like to chat. That's not enough to go on the list yet, but I mean, there has to be someone else, right? There must be. There must be someone else. Frederick Leroy won't talk to me. Pierre Ederer won't talk to me. The Dublin Declaration people won't talk to me. The HDB scientists won't talk to me. This crisis communications expert, we'll see. But, I mean, come on, the right-wing media keeps on telling me that meat's actually healthy and sustainable. There's got to be a scientist who's going to come and talk to me and prove it. There must be. By the way, I've been criticising the Dublin Declaration for months and months and months. I've been tagging them on LinkedIn for months and months and months. If any of those 1,200 scientists thought that they could give a compelling defence of the Dublin Declaration, they should reach out to me. Months and months and months I've been saying the Dublin Declaration is junk science. Nobody has challenged me. Not one person. Frederick Leroy has not commented to disagree with that. Pierre Ederer has not commented to disagree with that. None of the 1,200 scientists who have signed the Dublin Declaration have come up to defend it. And they've got nothing as well. They've got no defence whatsoever. Frederick Leroy is meant to be the final boss, right? He's meant to be the meat industry science guy. He will never talk to me. I actually had someone reach out to me today about Frederick Leroy. I commented on an old podcast that he was on saying this guy won't defend his junk science. And the podcast host reached out to me on LinkedIn. It's in DM, so I don't want to show it, but I'll read it. Hey Chris, just saw your comment. At the end of that podcast, Frederick says he would be open to have a conversation with someone who does not agree. Like in a podcast. Just to know, is that something you would be interested? I said, oh, hell yes, but I have a feeling my buddy Freddie might not be down to chat. Feel free to ask him though, I'd love to know what he says. The podcast host said, haha, would be a pity if he does not. I said, he's my future bestie, so if you could hook us up, I'd be really grateful. He says, I'll discuss with my colleagues, see if he would like to have an episode like that, then bring it to Frederick as well. I'll keep you posted. We'll see if that happens. Actually, I don't know why I said we'll see if that happens. I would pretty much bet anything at this point that this guy will not talk to me.